When a controversy is brewing, should your podcast take a stand? If the topic is important enough, you may feel compelled. But how deep should you go? And how will that change your show? Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. So I was interviewed last night on a podcast. Hadn't come out yet. I'll let you know when it comes out. And that conversation we had got pretty heated. Now, fortunately, or not so fortunately, however you want to look at it, we were all of a similar mindset on this particular topic, which is very divisive and of import to the podcast community. But again, I'm not covering it here. That's another episode. I will link to that episode when it's actually live. And, but, honestly, even though it was about podcasting, I'm not sure I would have brought it up as an episode of Podcast Pontifications. And that got me to thinking about when to dive into a controversial topic, when podcasters like yourself should throw their proverbial hat into the ring. Now, a lot of shows, a lot of podcasts out there are built around controversy, are there basically to do, if you want to call it, shock value. And so, of course, they wade in all the time. There are lots of news and current events that take one side or three different sides and argue a topic. But for most of us, we're not doing that. We're not here to cover those current events. For those shows, it's built into the DNA of their shows. But for the rest of us out here, when should we, how do we think through the process of wading into controversy? So that's what I'm going to give you today. I'll give some thoughts around that. I think there's really three things to think of first. So before you say yes, you need to say yes to these three questions. Question number one, is the topic worth it? If you're going to change up your show to present your side of an argument, it probably needs to be a pretty big deal. At least as far as your show goes. It probably shouldn't be something trivial. This needs to be something that is worthy of you doing something drastically different than what you normally do. And also, is it something that is big enough that you should have an opinion on this? I'll talk about that a little bit more. But, there are some things where, look, it's just, that's not right. I mean, well, you're entitled to your opinion. Everyone is entitled to their opinions. Make sure that's very, very clear, right? But is this something your opinion needs to be expressed on? And let me get more into that in the second part of that question. So question number one, is the topic worth it? Question number two, do you want to be controversial? It might be worth it. It might be a big topic that is worthy of a conversation, but maybe that's not what you want to do with your show. You don't have to. You do not have to wade into any controversy, even if the controversy is in your domain. You do not have to do that. But if you say, you know what, I think I want to do that, right? Ask yourself a couple questions inside of that. Make sure that your show is the right venue for it. You may want to do that, but you do a podcast about brass polishing. Is that the right venue to have a conversation about the plight of bald eagles? Maybe. You decide if your show is the right venue, and you also decide if you're the right messenger. Especially if your opinion runs counter to the prevailing wisdom that is out there. And I'm a big fan of having an opinion that runs counter to the prevailing wisdom, don't get me wrong. But make sure you're the right messenger. Make sure that everything works that way. Other questions inside of the do you really want to be controversial is, are you ready for the blowback? Because there will be blowback, especially if your opinion runs counter. You're going to have some people who don't like your opinion. Are you prepared for the email or the social media complaints that you are going to get? Are you prepared to handle the bad reviews that might come in, the lost subscribers, the lost advertisers, maybe lost supporters if you use listener support? And if your show is big enough, or even in your own niche, you might get negative press. Are you ready for that? That's part of the questions of, do you want to be controversial? Do you want to be controversial? And the third thing is, does your audience want you to be controversial? Or are they just looking for a regular safe harbor from your show for that? Because some of them are going to be taken aback by the shift, either in your tone or the topic. But of course, on the other side of that, some of them also want to know that you are engaged and you're an ally. So maybe your audience does want you to be controversial. So if you can answer all three of those questions, yes, it's a topic worth it. Yes, you want to be controversial. And yes, your audience, or at least a big enough portion of your audience, wants you to be controversial. Then you've got to decide how deeply you go. Because now you're going to do it. But how much do you do? I mean, is this such an important thing that you want to make an entire series of episodes, a 3 or a 6 series episodes where you just dig into it deeply and really, really cover it? Maybe. But more likely it's going to be maybe a full episode. Whatever you normally do, you're going to take a break and say, no, this full episode now is going to be dedicated to this topic because I want my opinion out there. Maybe an easier thing to do is just do a segment of your show. This one segment for the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes, I'm going to cover this particular topic. You can do that, but keep in mind that shift in tone and that change where your opinion comes forth is going to taint, if you will, the entire episode. Maybe it's best as a bonus content. Maybe you skip a week and you say, this is just a bonus. It's not part of the normal flow, but it's important to me. If you want to hear what I have to say, listen. If not, skip it. That's one way to do it. It's a little bit safer. But again, once you've decided what you're going to do, and now that you've decided how deep you're going to go into it, I want you to think about this. You need to check in because publishing episodes have consequences, and you want to know what happened. You decided to raise your voice for a reason if you decided to raise your voice. You need to monitor your name. You need to monitor your show's name because there are people mention you that won't tag you. They won't use your social handles, but they'll just mention your name or your show's name. Are you monitoring for that? There are tools out there which will let you monitor any mentions of your brand. Pay very close attention to social media replies that you might get, or wherever else your show has been published. Check your comments, keep an eye on your reviews, ratings, because you did something different. You want to know that it actually worked. See, for me, I'm a fan of controversy. I don't shy away from it, and I'm happy to take all of the problems that were mentioned up there. I'm happy to take the blowback. I'm happy to suffer through whatever happens if I feel the topic is worthy enough and it's something I want to have an opinion about. But not everybody has to do that. But you have to decide whether or not you want to make today's controversy your episode going out tomorrow or next week or whatever happens to do. We probably all know podcasters who struggle with this question. Should I enter into the fray or not? You could actually send them this episode, a link to the article or the audio itself. That's fine. And say, here's some thoughts. Here's one guy thinking about this. Here's how he thinks you should approach this controversial topic. Go ahead, send that to him. And plus, it helps spread podcast pontifications. I always like that. And if you want to support me and the thoughts I bring to you 4 days a week here for free on Podcast Pontifications, please go to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra and sign up for a membership. That would be awesome. That's it. Have the great rest of your day. I shall be back tomorrow with yet another Podcast Pontifications. Cheers.